23. She was just 12 years old. She was in state care, and by the time she was 13, she'd had a baby. Yet in the 10 years since, it appears nothing has been done to investigate this case. Now, in the shadow of the National Royal Commission into the Evils of Child Abuse in our churches and institutions, it's stories like these that have us wondering how far such an inquiry needs to go. And as we're seeing in our schools right now, attempts to cover up these crimes is still going on. But here's Graham Archer with Jane's story.
I would like him to be locked up. I would like justice to be done. I don't want any child to have to go through what I had to go through.
There's no political will to fix this problem. None. What there is a political will to make sure that these stories and others like them never come to the surface.
Stories like Jane's, almost too bizarre to believe. But if she's right...
I was going from foster home to foster home from the age of 10.
First abused at 4, a ward of the state by 10, a mother at 13, 34 foster homes by 18, and now at 24, she wants some answers.
Most of the homes I went in, some of them were very abusive, and I just wanted someone to talk to.
After Jane was molested by her mother's boyfriend, she moved to South Australia to live with her father, but clashed with his girlfriend.
His partner at the time couldn't control my behaviour, and decided to abandon me at the Riverland Family in SA, and I was only 10 then, and was put in care.
At 10?
At 10.
So you were basically dumped on Family SA's doorstep?
Yes.
And they had to take you in?
Yep.
From there, she became a ward of the state.
They had taken to court and got a 28-day custody order or the 12-month order that they normally do, and it was too late for my dad.
Do you understand that under the circumstances that was for your protection?
It was, yes, to protect me.
But according to Jane, after being shuffled through a series of foster homes, some good, some not so good, she ended up in harm's way, placed with a mother and son.
Who was effectively your foster brother?
Yes.
And how old were you?
I was only 12 and a half at that time.
And how old was he?
He was almost 23.
And what did you think of that?
At first I thought it would be good because I would have had an elder brother, you know, someone to care for me and look out for me if something went wrong.
And things did go wrong.
So it turned out to be something that took away my whole life. It changed everything with me.
When did he start molesting you?
Within 3 days of me living in the house.
3 days?
Yes.
Nightly, he would enter her room after his mother, who was deaf, had gone to bed.
There was a few times I've actually woken up with nothing on. He's just completely stripped me naked.
Not that this is relevant because you were so young, but did you resist or encourage it?
At the time I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was right and what wasn't right because I never once had anyone sit down and explain to me that this was right and this is not right.
But she confided in a friend who alerted her school and crisis care turned up. Jane, still 12, says she refused to name her foster brother as her abuser.
At the time, before it all happened, he came in the room and he goes, "You need to lie, you need to say it never happened or I will make your life hell."
She was removed from the home but kept returning. Her foster brother hid her from his mother and the abuse continued.
And I'll get there and I'll be put inside, I'll be let inside. And by the time she'd rocked up, I was locked in a room. I wasn't allowed to leave. He even pulled a whole bar fridge apart and stuck me inside of it. Cut a hole in mattresses, made me lay in it. I cut a hole in the roof. I had to hide in the roof.
This apparently went on for 10 months.
I was pretty much a prisoner in one room.
For 10 months?
Yes.
But in that 10-month period, what was his mother doing?
She wasn't really doing, all she was doing was a normal routine, and that was caring for other children that came in and out of her care.
But she must have known you were there.
I was never allowed to make a sound.
This sounds unbelievable. Are you absolutely sure that you're telling me the truth?
It's definitely true. 100% true.
I would never dismiss any claims made by a person who was a ward of this state. As bizarre as some stories may sound, I've learnt that, bizarre things happen and bizarre steps are taken for these kids to be kept in these abusive households, and that the more bizarre it is, the more likely that it did happen.
Independent MLC Anne Bressington has seen numerous cases where children have been exposed to risk and then the details swept under the carpet.
I would wonder how many other kids have been in the care of this foster carer, and how many other girls have been abused by this son, because this sort of behaviour, 23-year-old men being attracted to 12-year-old girls, is really a one-off.
You have to wonder what Families SA were doing. It was during this time that Jane became pregnant, and when the child was born, it was immediately removed and put into care.
I was 13 still.
Well, sadly, young girls getting pregnant under the guardianship of the minister is not as rare as we'd all like to think it is. It's quite common.
So that was 10 years ago.
Yes.
And nothing really has happened about that since?
No, nothing has. I was made to stay in the relationship for 7 years.
She says her abuser constantly threatened to block her access to her child, and despite still being a ward of the state, at 16 she was permitted to move back in with the mother and son.
So you actually went back to living with the mother?
Yes.
And at this point, what was she thinking about all this?
I have no idea what she was thinking. I think she was just happy to have her son home and not having to worry about him living independently and not having things done.
What was life like during that period?
It was hell.
In what way?
I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to go, if I walked down the street, I was accused of sleeping with another male.
It's a meat factory. We turn these kids over, they go through these homes, they're abused, they're moved on, they're brought back, other kids are brought in, they're abused, they're moved on, they're brought back in, and it all goes towards keeping that dirty little secret. And these young girls are bullied and intimidated.
And so, believe it or not, at 18 she married him.
But you married him. Why did you do that?
I just decided to marry him because I thought it would stop all the problems. I thought if I married him, he would stop being the way he was, stop controlling my life. But it never did.
Then came a second child. Both are afflicted with a genetic disease inherited from the father, which slows their development.
Well, this is the collateral damage that this state faces, because we have a department that rarely puts the best interests of the child first.
In the meantime, the authorities decided both parents were incapable of caring for the children.
They believe I'm an unfit mother. They believe I'm violent. Or because I suffer severe depression. Because of what's happened to me in my past, they hold it against me.
Regardless, surely action ought to have been taken when a 13-year-old in state care gets pregnant, and the father is an adult who continues to molest her for another 6 years. Finally, this year, she went to the police.
They were happy to charge him. They said that they were going to do it, but they needed to do a DNA test on my daughter to prove that it was his.
Much of this happened under Jay Weatherall's watch. Should he take responsibility for some of this?
Jay Weatherall was the one who came out and said this department needs to be dismantled and completely started again. and he did nothing. Nothing.
There's about to be a National Royal Commission. Should it also be focusing on the conduct of government departments?
Oh, absolutely they should.
In the meantime, Jane has to wait on the police before she can put all this behind her.
My message is, don't judge people. You don't know the full story. They never lived in my home. Never seen what it was day to day.